Today, Pat Conaghan, Nationals MP for Cowper, released some quite scary information that had been confirmed. Labor will rip hundreds of millions of dollars out of regional Australia. Now, Cowper is proudly a regional electorate. Mr. Conaghan says in his announcement that we finally found out how Anthony Albanese pays for his never-ending list of promises for the big cities, slashing money for the regions. Grants for sports fields, community halls and children's centres from our $350 million regional community development grants program and $400 million coming from the regionalisation fund. It'll all be gone under Labor. So this is pretty scary, but I want to know, is this actually true? And indeed, the ABC reported opposition leader Anthony Albanese announced on Wednesday that if elected, Labor would slash funding pools for community and regional grant schemes by $750 million, exactly as Mr. Conaghan has said. And let's actually look beyond that. So the grant programs that Mr. Conaghan speaks of are part of a group of national and regional grant programs that operate under ministerial discretion. So I found an excellent report by the Australia Institute released in November 2021, which gave me information by electorate for all the ministerial discretionary grant programs that have been allocated since Coalition came to power in 2013. So what we find is there's a total of $3,902 million in those grant programs, and of these, $1,295 million are regional grants. And when we cut $750 million from these, that means 19% of those funds are gone. And again, what will that mean for Cowper? So how much did we receive? So I looked at the national grants programs, the electorates that received the most funding, the top 20, and Cowper is not there in the top 20, which is sort of odd because Cowper is the fourth most populous electorate in Australia. So on a pro rata basis, I would have thought we'd rank up there in the top half dozen or so. So how will Cowper be affected by Labor's reduction in national grants funding? Now, I don't know Cowper's allocation from that program, from those national grants. So I'm going to generously assume that we got the same $112 per capita that other safe coalition seats received. And the answer is, when we take that $112 per person over 7 years and we reduce that by 19%, we're down to $91 per person, equivalent to $13 annually. So we will no longer receive our $16 per person annually, we'll only receive $13 annually. So we're going to get $3 less than now. Not suddenly seeming so scary. That's 1 cup of coffee per year I'd have to go without. So maybe the issue is in the regional grants program. So there we are, $31.1 million allocated to Cowper, the 17th highest recipient of regional grants came to Cowper. And again, we got $31 million over 7 years out of regional grants. When that's cut by 20%, what will that mean? So let's just apply the same principle that we're a safe coalition seat. So assume we got $156 per capita under those regional grants. So when we take, oh, actually, look, we got more. On that table earlier, where we were ranked 17th, find that we got $31.1 million, which when we take our population of 164,058 people, that means we got $190 per Cowper resident. So we actually got more. So we're going to suffer more, aren't we? This will be bad. So before Labor delivers its cuts in regional grants, Cowper received $190 per capita over 7 years, which is $27 per person annually. When Labor cuts that by its 19%, that's $5 per person, we'll only get $22 per person per annum. That's a couple of cups of coffee I'd have to go without each year. But what will I get for the dollars I'm giving away? Each Cowper resident will have to sacrifice $3 each year in national grants plus $5 each year in regional grants. That's $8 every single year. For what? What is Labor actually offering to pay for my $8 a year? Now this is interesting, reducing power bills by $275 a year by 2025. I don't mind trading my $8 a year for a $275 power bill cut. Fee-free TAFE places, cheaper childcare, better Medicare, better aged care, infrastructure building, and some Made in the Future National Reconstruction Fund. So who will suffer? Where have Cowper's grants been allocated? There have been lots of useful small projects that are important for our communities, but gee, a lot has gone to private schools and private hospitals and private aged care facilities. The details are available on Pat Conaghan's website. Honestly, if that 19% reduction in grant funding came from the dollars that are allocated to privately owned facilities, I'm not sure I'll be complaining too much. Here's some of the grants. Private schools. So, as well as private hospitals, and we've got more private schools and more private residential aged care. The elders in my family can't afford private residential aged care. They can't afford private hospitals. My grandchildren's families won't be able to afford private schools. I'm not sure I'm going to be too badly affected. The question I'm left with now is Cowper in 2022 still an electorate that wants to allocate grant funding to privately owned hospitals, schools, education facilities, residential aged care? There's also private businesses, health practices, pharmacists, wineries. They're also in there. I am wondering if Cowper is an electorate in 2022 that wants our public funds going in that way. So Vote Compass today released findings of 334,411 respondents who had participated in the Vote Compass survey, online survey, between 10th of April and 13th of May. Now, there's a lot of data in this slide, but to simplify it, in the left-hand column, we have electorates whose policy priorities are more left-leaning, more progressive. And over on the right-hand column, the right-hand third, we've got electorates whose policy priorities are more conservative, of what you call more right-leaning. And then we've sort of got the middle third. The colours indicate who currently holds the seat: red, ALP, blue, Coalition, green, green. And where is Cowper on this grid? There it is, in the left-hand third column, right down the bottom. You see there's a blue seat. There's only one other blue seat there, which is Page, our neighbouring electorate. This suggests that maybe Cowper in 2022 is more progressive than it was when the decisions about grant programs were being made. Another way of looking at the Vote Compass data is to map it according to how economically conservative or progressive on an axis against how socially conservative or progressive each electorate is indicating their policy priorities are. So from left to right, we have an economic axis where to the left we've got more progressive economic policy priorities, and over to the right we have more conservative economic priorities. And when we look vertically, when we go down to the bottom of that axis, we've got more socially conservative policy priorities, and towards the top we've got more progressive social policy priorities. So we end up with a matrix, and there's Cowper right in the middle of the entire matrix. Neither left nor right economically, neither socially progressive nor socially conservative. Right there in the middle. This says to me that Cowper, who has elected a Conservative Member of Parliament for every single election since 1922, with one exception, 1961, the year of my birth, when we briefly had a Labor candidate. Perhaps we are changing. I think that Cowper is ready to sacrifice his $8 per person per year loss from the national and regional grants program because the alternatives are very attractive. We've got Labor's promises around Medicare and jobs and wages and childcare, taxation and Made in Australia and education. We've got the Greens' promises for climate change, housing, healthcare, environmental protection, free education for life. And we've got an independent candidate, Kaz Heiss, promising to tackle climate, integrity, health and respect. My final word based on my digging down into this is do not let Pat Conaghan deceive you with distortions, misrepresentations and exaggerations about his opposing candidates. Please vote for a Cowper that is respectful, fair, honest and a model of integrity. Thank you for listening.